Hi knitters! Welcome to Craft Curiosity. This is our very first video. We are going to do lots of tutorials and lots of crafts, so I hope you'll stick with us and try some new stuff. But in this series I'm teaching you how to knit. And you can't knit without casting on, so this is the most basic cast on. It's so easy to start with. Easy enough to teach to a child. It really is simple. I'm going to use bamboo needles here. These are size 10.5 Takumi bamboo needles. I like bamboo for starters. It holds the yarn. They're nice and smooth and soft on the hands, and they're not quite as slick as the metal needles. So I like these for starting out. I like them in general. I'm going to start with one of the needles in my right hand, and then I'm going to take the end of the yarn, which is the tail, and also put that in my hand. The working yarn is yarn that goes up and is attached to the skein. So I'm going to take the tail of the yarn, and I'm going to take my index finger here and just hold that yarn against the needle. Then I'm going to take my left hand and scoop up the yarn. These three fingers are going to just kind of hold on and give me a little tension. It doesn't need to be tight, just loose, but you don't want the yarn slacking either. So I just use that for a little control, and then my index finger is going to do the work. My index finger now is going to scoop up, my hand turns over and I make a loop, and then I take that loop and I place it on the needle. That's it. That's the whole ball of wax. This is really simple. You just repeat that process. Now if I let go at this moment, this yarn will come right off the needle. But as soon as I put a second stitch on, it won't go anywhere. So again, I scoop up the yarn, turn my hand over, make a loop, and place that loop on the needle. And this is what I mean. You could walk away now and come back to it later if you wanted to, but why would you? You want to keep knitting, right? So we just keep doing that. We scoop, loop, and place. Now, once you get going, you're just going to be scooping, looping, and placing until you get the desired number of stitches on your needle that you want. What will happen as you practice this is you'll get what's called muscle memory. It will happen with anything that you knit or crochet or tat or any of the hand activities for that matter. Because what happens is you get used to it, your hands get used to where they need to go. And I can come back to this at any time and I remember. It's like riding a bike. So that will happen for you. Just keep practicing. Try the other cast-ons as well because they all have different reasons for use. In fact, before I knit this up a little bit, I can show you what this one's going to look like. This is a sample of the simple cast-on. And if you look here at this edge, it makes a nice edge. It looks like kind of stitched across, and it has a kind of a short stitch here and a long stitch. It has a lot of stretch to it, and it's really ideal for something like a first project scarf, something along those lines. Now the one thing I do want you to be aware of with this particular cast on is when you actually knit this cast on, the first row is a little funny, and I just don't want you to be afraid. I don't want you to feel like you did something wrong. So here's what happens. I'm going to knit into this first stitch, and I knit by going into the first loop from front to back and underneath the first needle, wrap the yarn, and I'm going to make a loop that I pull through onto my second needle and drop a loop off the first needle. That's knitting. Now I do have a detailed video to show you those steps and help you practice along with it in a little more detail, but that's the basics. Now look what happens when I make that stitch. I get this huge gap in between my two needles. When I make the second stitch, watch what happens. Now look, these two loops are right next to each other, right where they should be, but I still have this gap of yarn in between on my needle. I'm going to make a third stitch, and just like magic, you'll see that it does the same thing. The stitches are staying together, it's just the gap on the needle. Don't worry about that. It only happens in this particular cast on because it's such a loose cast on. So it won't happen after the first row, so just go with it. And it won't happen with some of the other cast-ons. It just happens on this one. So get your needles and your yarn and try it out. If you're not sure what kind of materials you want to buy, you can look at the links below here and see links to these products that I've used.